Currently, the one thing that you should be going for in Warzone is not only a win, but as it stands right now, these are definitely the most worthwhile items of Warzone, allowing you to have your own custom tailored loadout, even kitted out with perks that you can't get normally, which will give you a definitive edge over the players who are only loaded with low tier scars and an MP7. You can get all of that sometimes even in the first 5 minutes, maybe even sooner. But I do think in the near future that we'll end up seeing loadout drops inevitably nerfed in some capacity, whether that be something that increases the cost of the buy or making loadout drops individual to the player that bought them and not necessarily accessible to the full team, perhaps both or even more. But while you can still utilize them to your major benefit, today I want to discuss with you 5 of the top loadouts that you can have for all sorts of engagements that you will absolutely annihilate with. So that said, as we go along, feel free to let me know your thoughts. Firstly, if you used any of these, how did you do? And secondly, what would you add to this list, if anything at all? What's your favorite loadout so far? As well, do be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all things Warzone and Modern Warfare. I'm seriously in love with Warzone. It's consuming me, so while I'm enjoying it, I'd love to keep as many of you guys up to date as possible. But that said, let's begin. The first thing we need to mention before diving into specific class loadouts is that you need to go in knowing how you want to play. Do you want to be that rusher, the guy that clears buildings but may risk his life trying to take on as many gunfights as possible, or do you want to be that guy with the sniper that scouts and kills from a distance? There's really no right or wrong answer, but it's always nice to know this going in, not only to the game but also to the creation of your loadouts, so that you can custom tailor something that fits how you're going to play and fits your playstyle to a T. You'll see that through these loadouts, I like to have basically kind of an assortment of close range, mid-range, and long-range engagement classes set up so that if a situation were to change, I can maybe hit a loadout drop later on in the game than when I initially got one at the very beginning, and then change things up so that I'm better suited for a change in the environment. But first things first, let's talk about some loadout specifics and some more so universal ones across these different loadouts that we set up. Firstly, let's talk about the perk setup here with this, because that's probably the first thing you can see that will be across the board for all of this. So we'll talk about weapons more so in particular. Those are the revolving 5 class setups that make these up. But for perks, I'll normally run Cold-Blooded, Overkill, and Tracker. For some classes, I will throw on in different situations tune up so that the revives will be a little bit quicker, but for the most part, I like to be able to stay off thermals. I like to have 2 weapons at my disposal, and I like to, in close quarters, be able to see where an enemy will be going with those footsteps. As well, a lot of the stuff also will be in the lethal and tactical sections, a lot more universal as well, with more so a Semtex and also a smoke grenade, because if I need to smoke across or if I need to get out of a pinch situation, that'll give me a little bit of cover, whereas they may not be in the environment. I normally play with players that will have the heartbeat sensor, which is again something else that is incredibly overpowered right now as it stands, so I don't normally have to do that. But if you don't play with players, I would definitely consider taking a heartbeat sensor over a smoke grenade. Talking about the individual weapons and their kitted loadouts here with this, a lot of the gameplay you'll see and have seen so far is my go-to class setup whenever I have a custom loadout, that being an M4 with a sniper rifle. Personally, I think one of the more versatile loadouts that I can use in basically any situation, therefore is my go-to, but I end up running the M4 and the HDR with this class loadout. For the M4, it's a little bit different than that of what we put in our MP class loadouts whenever we talk about that and the M4 with standard 6v6 or ground war. For Warzone and Battle Royale, though, we end up putting the monolithic suppressor on it, the stock M16 Grenadier barrel, the no stock option, the stippled grip tape, as well as the 60-round magazines. Now, to explain a little bit of the differences here, the monolithic suppressor adds not only damage but also range, which in a map as big as this one, that's absolutely crucial. Plus, the biggest part is that you don't have any radar icon whenever you shoot. You stay off that mini-map, which again is absolutely crucial. Then the 60-round magazine is also something that it takes a little bit of extra shots to get a kill, and also then to, if you want to thirst the player if they have self-revive or you don't want them making any callouts, it takes a couple of extra shots. And so the normal standard, I think it's 30 rounds, you can burn through that relatively quickly, so you won't be able to get off any double or triple kills, but 60 rounds should usually do the job with all of that. Now for the sniper, this is where we start to dive into a little bit more again of a different sniping loadout than I'd normally use. This, for the HDR, we run the monolithic suppressor, the 26.9 HDR Pro barrel, the thermal sniper scope, the FTAC champion stock, as well as the 7-round magazine. I use this primarily to scout out enemies, and also, I mean, you can get some really nasty shots off at a very long distance with this, but things like, again, that monolithic suppressor helps keep you off that radar. The thermal scope allows you to see basically as far as you want, because players that don't have perks, don't have cold-blooded equipped, they're going to have some heat signatures that showcase at basically the entire distance from across the map. The FTAC champion stock will allow you to have some extra aiming stability, and the 7-round mags just giving you a couple extra shots to work with before you have to reload. But I use this again a ton just scouting out, trying to gain information on where enemies may be. So mix that with the fact this weapon can obviously take long-range engagements, and then you have an M4 that is absolutely kitted for mid-range and even close range, and you got yourself, I think, a go-to class loadout. But not to stick too long on that one, moving over to my next favorite, that dealing with a class loadout that is dueling with the AUG as well as an HDR sniper. Again, keeping that ability to scout out players from across the map and at a distance, but also with the AUG, it's statistically one of the best, if not the best weapon with the 5.56 rounds in Warzone. So yes, you're going to have probably a little bit more close quarters engagements comparative to the M4, but it is absolutely worthwhile, and of course something that can absolutely shred. Now the HDR is the exact same, still offering up that ability to scout, and everything we run on it is the exact same as what we just detailed, but the AUG is where it breaks and deviates a little bit. This again, slightly different than that of what I use in MP, if you've seen any recommendations we've made here on the channel before, but running the monolithic suppressor, the 407mm extended barrel for the barrel attachment, the Forge Tac CQB stock, the stippled grip tape, as well as then the 5.56 NATO 60 round magazine, not just the stick mag, but the round drum magazine to allow for, again, more shots on offer before you have to actually reload. Now, not only can this thing shred, but one interesting fun fact here is that with the 5.56 rounds, it still takes the SMG ammo type whenever you're looting in what you can use for the weapon. So it's the most common ammo type around the map. You even spawn in with it, so you shouldn't really have all that big a problem if you want to try and get to max ammo. But it's absolutely fantastic, and I would absolutely recommend this one. But moving along to our final dual loadout with the option of scouting, we're going to talk about a class setup with the Ram 7 as well as the HDR. Of course, the HDR being the exact same as we've mentioned here with the M4 and the AUG loadout, so refer back to that one if you want to see the attachments. But the Ram 7 having very comparable statistics to that of the M4, almost identical in a lot of different cases. It is still, again, naturally a perfect option for your close quarters even and mid-range engagements. Obviously, though, more so favoring the mid-range engagements as a rifle, but the Ram 7 can be fantastic with the monolithic suppressor, the Forge Tac Eclipse barrel, an optic of your choice, or if you don't really care, you can deal with the iron sights on the Ram 7. You can, of course, use that attachment wherever you may see fit, whether that be an ammunition modification to allow for some extra rounds in each magazine, or if you want to kit out your weapon for some more aiming stability on your stock, you can do that. But I also run the stippled grip tape for a little bit quicker of an ADS response time, and the Commando foregrip for a little bit more added recoil control. This one really just coming down more so to preference. If you like the feel of the M4, or if you like the feel of the Ram 7, they're pretty similar, so you'll be able to see this as a more so interchangeable one with that. But let's move away from some of our rifle and SMG combined with scouting loadouts. Let's talk a little bit about more so some close quarters engagements, but also some ones that deal with mid-range still as well. The first one I'll talk about is one that I really didn't give all that much attention to because I didn't think it'd be all that great in Warzone, but it truly does turn out to be something worthwhile if you are accurate. That being a loadout with the EBR and the R90 shotgun. Now, the EBR in MP can be a one hit to the head, but it doesn't turn out to be that way, but still is incredibly lethal if you are accurate with the EBR. So for this, we end up running the monolithic suppressor, the 22-inch barrel, the thermal hybrid, just because, again, you can scout out if you really want to, but you can switch to that regular reticle without it. Then you want to have the FSS Raider Chassis Elite and the 15-round magazine so that you're not reloading constantly and can take on maybe 1 or 2 gunfights without having to reload. Is it something you want to challenge a gunfight close quarters with this? Not particularly, but that's why we end up running the R90. On the R90, we end up running the Forge Tac Sentry Barrel, we end up running the FTAC Close Quarters Pro Pump, the Merc foregrip, and the stippled grip tape, along with the perk of Sleight of Hand to allow us to reload those shells a little quicker, because if you're in close quarters, a reload could be the difference between life and death or being sent to the gulag, so you want to be able to get back into the action as quick as possible. But the R90 is a double pump shotgun that is the best in class comparative, and is probably, I think, think, one of the best weapons in all of Warzone. I'd probably put it up there as a top 3, top 5 weapon overall, not just even in this loadout selection. But you can kill incredibly fast with the R90, so you definitely want to have this equipped, and I think with the loadout we have here is definitely a weapon you can shred with. And the final loadout that I want to talk about today, dealing then with another rifle, but also close quarters match, not scouting this time, deals with the Odin as well as the R90. Now the R90 is, again, the exact same loadout that we just mentioned, so refer back to that one here, but the Odin is one that in MP and as a result in Warzone has an incredibly quick time to kill if you are accurate with it. The only thing though is that I wouldn't challenge super long gunfights here with this because of the recoil, especially in Warzone. It gets kind of wild because the map is so open, it is so large that those distances may seem a little bit closer when they really in fact are not. But on the Odin, we end up running the Colossus Suppressor, an optic of your choice. I usually run the GI Mini Reflex, the Commando foregrip, sometimes the Ranger foregrip, as well as the stippled grip tape with the perk of Sleight of Hand. Now you can run another barrel on this in place of a weapon perk if you want to add some extra weight and also then control the recoil a little further, but that's entirely up to you. I think that you actually might see in some of the gameplay in the background a loadout where I accidentally had a laser equipped instead of Sleight of Hand or the stippled grip tape. Can't remember off the top of my head, but that loadout overall is something that will allow you to kill in a relatively quick capacity, and also again mix that with the close quarters dominance of the R90. And if you don't care about scouting out all that much, you'll be able to absolutely annihilate enemies in those regular engagements, especially late game. When it comes to final circle, dude, if you have an R90, you're golden. But anyways, that is my top 5 loadouts here that I would absolutely recommend. So let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. Is there anything in particular you would add to this? If you try these out, how did you do? Let me know any and all of that down there in the comment section down below. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things in Modern Warfare, updates, news, information, tips, tricks, all that good stuff. We got you covered here on the channel. So if any of that interests you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. I live on both those. So if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.